Story 1. Professional cleaner. It is not like cleaning your own home on a Saturday. It must be perfect and spotless. Story 2. Honestly, anything that relies on soft skills can be exhausting in an unfathomable variety of ways, regardless of age or intelligence level. Story 3. It's easy to be a poor manager. Being a valuable one for your staff or your company is quite different. Story 4. Caring for an aging family member is an important and often overlooked responsibility. Many individuals are struggling in this role. I have held various jobs, but none compare to the experience of caring for an elderly person. Story 5. In addition to teacher, I will also add daycare worker. It is not just sitting around and playing with children all day as it may appear. Story 6. I provided care for individuals with developmental disabilities in group homes. It was more challenging than expected because the clients had previously lived in institutions where they experienced abuse. Some of them exhibited anger issues, self-harm, and property destruction. Story 7. Teaching. I know someone who teaches 10th grade history. Every time I ask her how it is going, she just laughs and says they are coming along. The school year is almost over now. Story 8. Being a writer, whether as an author, journalist, screenwriter, or poet, is often dismissed as easy because it appears effortless when done well. But the truth is it's brutal. Traditional publishing can be a gatekeeping labyrinth. You're expected to market yourself, maintain an online presence, meet impossible metrics, and accept rejection as a daily routine, all while pouring your soul into work that most people will either skim, pirate, or critique for free. And yet, we do it anyway, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Writers shape culture, preserve truth, build empathy, and make sense of chaos. We're not just creators, we're translators of the human condition. And that's never been easy. Story 9. Any job can be challenging. Working can take a toll, and even the most enjoyable positions may negatively impact your mental health over time. Story 10. Dishwashing. I have been here for 3 years, and I have seen almost a dozen people get hired to join me in the dish pit, only to quit within a month. It is a dirty, sweaty, stressful, and physically demanding job that requires good attention to detail and a strong work ethic. Story 11. Cashiering in a grocery store is straightforward, but the customers can make it difficult and unpredictable. Story 12. Anything working from home. People think you can just do whatever you want if you are working from home, but in reality, you are micromanaged even more than when working in an office and can barely step away for a bathroom break. Story 13. Mail carriers walk 13 miles every day, 6 times a week. They also deal with difficult individuals in management. Our vehicles can reach 140 degrees in the summer, and our pay has not kept up with inflation. Story 14. As I have gradually climbed the corporate ladder, I realize that the more money you make, the easier the job tends to be. You might need more specialized skills, but the job just gets easier. It may be more mentally taxing, but it is not nearly as emotionally or physically exhausting. I could not do the entry-level grunt work again. It would be too overwhelming. I work in the print and hospitality industries. Story 15. Literally anything involving art, such as animation, illustration, writing, and acting. I have done all of these for money, though not much, and I cannot count the number of times I've heard, "Anyone can do that?" or "Get a real job." Story 16. Therapy. Oh, all you do is talk to people all day. That must be nice. Sure, Karen, if you consider discussing people's mental health and traumas nice. Story 17. Any work that is considered blue-collar is often underestimated by others. Those in suits may claim it is easy because they have never experienced it themselves. If you can work a full day without breaking a sweat, consider yourself fortunate. Story 18. Work-from-home jobs are not just about napping or watching television as people often assume. I am on calls throughout the day. While there are perks like doing dishes during my short breaks instead of engaging in casual conversations, which is a significant advantage, it does not mean my job is easy. Story 19. Any minimum wage job can be challenging. You receive low pay and must deal with difficult people who think they are superior. Minimum wage jobs are often stressful. I have worked multiple minimum wage jobs in my youth and once mistakenly believed that these jobs were meant for high school students. Now at 38, with a career earning just under $100,000 per year, I firmly believe that minimum wage workers deserve a livable wage, even if that means fast food employees earn $20 per hour. Story 20. Any job where you cannot use your talents is challenging. Therefore, any job that most people consider easy will be difficult for someone else. Story 21. Teaching is a demanding profession. People often say, "Oh, you get summers off." But it is an incredibly challenging job that requires dedication and effort every day. It is largely thankless, and educators are responsible for much more than just teaching students. Story 22. Dog groomer. It is one of the hardest jobs you can have, but everyone thinks we just play with puppies. Story 23. Game tester. People think you just play games all day, but there's more to it. I started out that way 20 years ago. You have to write test plans and perform automated testing. Then there's replaying the same scenarios repeatedly until that bug with a 5% reproduction rate finally occurs. After that, you need to fill out the bug report and follow up with the departments. Story 24. Not immediately reposting questions that were just asked is quite challenging. Story 25. Teaching is a vital profession, and the phrase "those who can't do, teach" is absurd considering all the challenges teachers face. A word of advice. Be mindful of what you say around your children, as they will repeat those words and opinions to anyone who might be listening. Story 26. Fast food and retail management often acts as if operating machinery is easy, but that is because they do not understand all the details that must be correct, or else a $500,000 machine could malfunction. Story 27. Teaching. I know it has already been said, but I feel so defeated every time I see or hear people comment that all we do is teach material and grade papers. I wish that's all I did. I teach K3 music, so I don't grade, but I work in 3 different buildings, have 3 classrooms, and see 650 students each week. Additionally, we do so much outside of our work hours. It's overwhelming. 90% of class time is spent on behavior management. I love teaching, but I feel that actual instruction is only about 30% of the job. All the other responsibilities make it so difficult. Story 28. Bartending. Everyone thinks it's a party when you make extra money on the side. Then comes the first time someone tries to throw a punch at you. Story 29. Librarian, library service associate, library aide. People seem to think you get to sit all day and read books, but the job is so much more than that. We are constantly on our feet and moving. There is always something that needs to be done. Even when we don't look busy, it's an illusion. If we're sitting down and on a computer, more than likely we're answering emails and planning our programs and displays in between answering questions and phone calls. We often act as maintenance staff, cleaners, and IT specialists for our libraries. We are constantly interacting with patrons, which can be difficult because many patrons expect us to help them with any and every problem they have. They need to design a poster. You're now a graphic artist. Taxes due. You're now an expert on taxes and need to tell them what forms to use. They need to make a resume. You're now a career consultant. Babysitter, finder of lost books, therapist, doctor, IT specialist, you name it. We are expected to answer questions about it or help fix it. I could go on, but you get it. It is both physically and mentally exhausting, especially if you work in a densely populated city. Story 30. CNA here, we do more than provide basic care. We take care of everything when it comes to ensuring you or your relative is clean, well-fed, happy, and protected from dangerous situations. Not only that, but we also care for 10 to 20 individuals at one time. Story 31. Pop star. That isn't working. That's the way you do it. Money for nothing and your girls for free. Story 32. Acting. People who do it well make it look easy. I am a background actor and have had a few opportunities to tape auditions at home for larger roles. Learning lines is one thing, but delivering them seamlessly is another. However, none of that is the hard part. Delivering the lines in a believable way is much more difficult than I ever thought. I have had as many takes as I wanted, but still, I have never delivered a performance that I consider even remotely believable. Story 33. You are constantly on the grind, looking for new content and managing your brand and image. You always have the pressure that everything falls on you, so if you want a break, you need to prepare content in advance for your time off. Working over 60 hours a week is the standard. Once you gain popularity, you need to start negotiating advertising deals for your videos, managing your editor, and interacting with both fans and critics. I still see the appeal of being your own boss and living life your way. However, there is so much that happens behind the scenes that cannot be captured on camera. When starting out, you are one of countless individuals trying to succeed. You must put in all the effort but may not receive any real rewards initially. In some cases, it takes years before you start to see any income, let alone enough to cover expenses. Story 34. Fast food is nothing but stress in a hot, greasy, cramped environment with many people trying to rush food out as quickly as possible. Story 35. Video game bug tester. On paper, you play games all day. In reality, you run into the same corner while throwing your primary weapon and quickly pressing the jump and crouch buttons until you phase through the wall. Story 36. The night shift at the convenience store was a challenging experience. The number of unusual individuals and the mental strain had a profound impact on my life. Even years after leaving, it still affects me to this day. Story 37. I have done various jobs, and customer service is the hardest in my opinion. Among all the customer service roles I have held, working at the hotel front desk was the most challenging and draining. Story 38. Nanny. We are substitute parents when you are not there. Parents calling it an easy job are mistaken. Story 39. Teaching kids who assume they can learn everything they need later contributes to their difficulties. Part of the blame goes to the administration, who keeps promoting them to the next grade level each new school year. Story 40. Being a mailman is often misunderstood. Many people think it simply involves putting paper in boxes and delivering parcels. While that is part of the job, there is much more to it. Mail carriers frequently walk over 5 miles in extreme heat, facing temperatures above 95 degrees Fahrenheit with high humidity, or even higher in direct sunlight. They endure dangerously cold conditions, with temperatures dropping to -5 degrees before wind chill is considered. Additionally, mail carriers contend with rain, thunderstorms, the risk of lightning strikes, tornadoes, and trucks without air conditioning that can be up to 20 degrees hotter than the outside temperature, especially in older models still in use. Winter brings challenges such as knee-deep snow, ice storms, and slippery porch steps, sidewalks, and driveways. Mail carriers must navigate around dogs that may bite, regardless of what the owner claims. It's common for these dogs to be unvaccinated and to have dental issues. Injuries like sprained ankles, broken bones, and dislocated limbs can occur from slipping or falling in yards or on driveways. These hazards increase in criminally unsafe areas of cities, where mail carriers face the threat of robbery or violence. In places like Chicago, worrying about personal safety is a real concern. In hotter states like Arizona, there are even reports of mail carriers succumbing to heat-related issues. The job comes with significant physical risks, and the challenges continue even when dealing with customers. There are those who complain about wet mail during torrential downpours, even while tornado warnings are in effect, and demand that outgoing mail be collected. Being a mailman is incredibly challenging, and those who underestimate it should reconsider their perspective. Story 41. Owning a business isn't just about wanting to own your own time. It involves working around the clock. You don't get holidays. Story 42. Any job that is at the bottom of the pay hierarchy is often referred to as a bullshit job. David Graeber's work explores this concept in detail. Story 43. Bartending. I can't stand how much people dismiss me when I'm busy with work. It's more than just serving drinks, and a few years ago it was listed as a more dangerous job than that of a police officer. Story 44. Hotel employee. This is definitely covered under customer service, as people have mentioned, but it is its own form of challenge. Coming from someone who worked at a large hotel for years and moved into management, I will never go back. Story 45. Most low-paying jobs still require some skill and training. I would likely struggle to operate a McDonald's kitchen without any formal training. Story 46. I am a nurse, and one of the most stressful specialties in nursing is going home to the kids, which is the hardest job by far. Story 47. I am interested in performing in the adult film industry. If and when I get an opportunity, I do not underestimate it. I am sure it will be more difficult than what we are led to believe. Story 48. Florist. There always seems to be an increase in people trying professional floristry during times of hardship like the pandemic, and I feel it happening now as well. Online forums are full of posts asking, "I've been arranging for 5 weeks. How do I start a business?" It's perceived as a job that anyone can do, as if it's just playing with flowers and putting them in a vase, when there's so much more to it than that to be truly skilled. Story 49. I'm not claiming that it's the hardest job ever, but washing dishes at a busy restaurant is nothing like washing dishes at home. People joke about washing dishes when the bill is expensive, but I seriously doubt you could handle it. Most people I worked with didn't last 3 months. Story 50. Software development feels as if most people think that kids these days know everything about anything with a screen. Story 51. Sound engineer, at least half the people in the room think they can do your job better than you. Story 52. School bus driver. The amount of training, testing, and certifications is significant and varies by state. Additionally, drivers must manage frustrated parents and children sneezing in their faces. Story 53. Unfortunately, teaching has left me baffled by the number of people who say, "But you get those summers off." Story 54. Teaching. I swear every person thinks it's an easy, sleazy, part-time job. It's frustrating how entitled some kids can be. Story 55. Being a reseller involves a significant amount of work, especially across different categories. When I tell people I am a reseller, they often think it simply means walking into thrift stores and garage sales to make money. You must find the product, clean and restore it, take pictures, and create listings. Finally, you need to ship the product once someone purchases it. It requires considerable effort, and some categories are much more challenging than others. Story 56. Basically, any job requires specific skills and knowledge. You can't just place anyone in front of a system or product and expect them to know what to do. Many individuals with advanced degrees seem to believe that their education automatically equips them with all necessary skills, even if their field of study is unrelated. They often dismiss certain jobs as not real jobs despite not having any first-hand experience in those roles. The most significant example is retail. Many who claim it is an easy profession have never worked at a register. Their inadequacy becomes apparent when they attempt just one small aspect of a cashier's job, such as operating the self-checkout, and encounter frequent difficulties. It's ironic when someone boasts about holding a master's degree or a doctorate yet struggles to navigate a simple computer system or understand their purchases. Story 57. Boom operator for movies and television shows. Every take of every narrative, documentary, reality show, or movie you watch has a boom microphone overhead, controlled by someone. This person must prioritize getting the microphone in the right spot for every line of dialogue, for up to 15 hours a day. This is not all. They must do this while avoiding being in the shot of an average of 2 or more cameras, any reflections they see, and not casting shadows on the set while moving from actor to actor. More often these days, extended moving shots are also taking place, where the boom operator is following a Steadicam operator, a person with a lantern on a stick, and maneuvering around set pieces, cables, furniture, terrain, weather conditions, animals, stunt performers, and various other obstacles, all while not being able to see the frames during shooting. They also often become the face and voice of the sound department. Story 58. Many people consider mechanics to be a job for less intelligent individuals. While it is true that a portion of the job involves straightforward tasks such as changing parts, diagnosing complex electronic issues can be very challenging. Some mechanics struggle with diagnostics and opt to replace parts until the problem is resolved. Story 59. Fast food restaurants often face negative perceptions, and middle-aged individuals frequently reminisce about their teenage jobs at establishments like McDonald's. I am middle-aged and hold a senior position, but I can honestly say I never worked as hard as I did in fast food. I often worked shifts of 14 hours straight, primarily on cleaning duties. Over the summer, I was physically attacked twice and spat on. I witnessed a teenage girl slip into a vat of frying oil, and I saw her skin bubble as she lost consciousness. Despite this, I was forced to continue working with the same vat before it was cleaned. It was truly disheartening. The only positive aspect of that experience was the people. I still remember some of them 30 years later. Story 60. Working in a manufacturing job at a factory involves highly skilled and specialized work, contrary to the belief that anyone can do it. Story 61. It's your life. When you are over the road, you stay out for weeks, often months. You drive most of the day and sleep in your vehicle at night. You rarely get out of it. You have to navigate all sorts of challenges, such as going down mountains and driving on gravel roads with no signs, often in bad weather. The pay isn't that great. It's not just your job. It's your life. Story 62. Title officer at a title or escrow company faces constant pressure and criticism. Whether the tasks are completed or not, there are consequences. Can be quite overwhelming. Story 63. Pet care and animal husbandry. People think we don't work most of the day and that we can do whatever we want. Ha! In my dreams. Story 64. Gardening. The number of times I have received comments like, "I wish I could dig in the dirt and play in the flowers all day too," is overwhelming. I perform physical labor for 7 hours a day, 5 days a week. Wheelbarrows full of mulch and compost are extremely heavy. Shoveling repeatedly to plant bulbs becomes tiresome. Lifting heavy tarps of old leaves and plant material often requires 2, sometimes 3 people to lift into a truck bed. I sweat. I get scratched by branches. I must consume electrolytes to avoid dizziness. Sometimes I bleed, and there are many days when I have to work after a poor night of sleep. I am still required to ensure that I am moving my body correctly and engaging the proper muscles to avoid serious injury. Enjoy your own flowers, but do not forget who put them there. Additionally, we are not just landscapers or turf maintenance workers. Our clients have high standards, and the work demands attention to detail and horticultural knowledge. Most of my coworkers, including myself, have a degree in our field, so this is not easy. I have invested time and money in learning about plants and landscape design. Story 65. People need to understand that the world needs fewer adults who behave as if they require constant care from a therapist and babysitter. Story 66. Making pancakes as a line cook in a restaurant that serves breakfast all day is definitely not what you would expect. It involves a lot of work just to prepare pancakes. Story 67. I believe that fast food workers in cities must address numerous challenges, including homelessness and mental health crises. Yet these workers are compensated inadequately. Story 68. I maintain that working at McDonald's or gas stations was the most technically challenging job I ever had. It is not physically demanding, and it does not require specialized skills. However, it required a wide range of skills, the ability to multitask, and to perform tasks at a rapid pace. My other jobs include landscaping, traveling reptile showman, being an emergency medical technician, and then earning my master's degree to become a systems engineer. Story 69. Management often faces criticism from subordinates, but it can be a challenging role. Many of those who claim that managers do not contribute may lack the necessary skills and soft skills to manage effectively. Story 70. Receptionist in a healthcare office. It may be mundane, but over time you build rapport with patients. In the office I work in, it is painful to see them come in repeatedly, not knowing if this will be their last visit, until you either don't see them again or receive a notification to update their charts. Story 71. Traffic control flaggers may seem straightforward, but one day, the flaggers did not show up, and my foreman instructed me to grab a sign and take on the role of flagger. I stood out there for 10 hours, and it was much more challenging than I expected. My feet and back were sore from standing still all day, and that 10-hour shift felt like 3 days. At the time, I was a laborer in great shape from shoveling and laying pipe all day, but flagging was significantly tougher than that physical work. Story 72. This is a long list of jobs that most people would agree are miserable. I don't think I've read a single job that anyone has ever said was easy. Story 73. Janitorial, fast food, and office work are examples of jobs that each have their learning curves and aspects that people dislike. Story 74. Information technology jobs are often perceived as fun and easy, but they require a broad understanding of various subjects, especially for small businesses. To ensure security, the department must be very procedural, accountable, and responsible. Story 75. I am a teacher. I always thought that working at a desk with hundreds of files would be a relief compared to the noise I deal with every day. My nervous system is overwhelmed after 15 years of teaching. I can't stand noise. Television, my children, scrolling through TikTok. A couple of days ago, I went for some administrative tasks and was waiting for the person to find my file on his desk. I felt depressed watching him work behind those files. I realized that my classroom is cheerful and at least things happen. Story 76. It is not easy. It is simple, like those who confuse the two words. Just because something is simple does not mean it is easy. Story 77. Farming involves driving around in air-conditioned tractors and waiting until the crops are ripe before driving around in the tractors again. It's a simple process that anyone can do. Story 78. I spent the last 6 years caring for my elderly mother. It was both a privilege and an unrelenting responsibility, especially in the last couple of years as her mind and strength deteriorated more rapidly. Without Medicare and home health coverage, I might have lost my ability to continue. The actions of the former president, through his South African mercenary, could strip vital help from thousands of people in similar situations. This is concerning. Story 79. Sure, maybe the ending sounded a little grand, but out of everything in that post, that's what you felt the need to comment on? Not the content, not the point, not even a counterargument, just a vibe check. Bold move. You really went with, I know the least and yet I must speak. But hey, every story needs a background character to miss the point entirely. Thanks for playing. Story 80. Video game tester. People think playing video games is fun, so being paid to do it must be great, but they overlook the tester aspect. As a programmer, I understand that it can be mind-numbingly tedious to test video games. You will go through an exhaustive series of tasks to ensure everything functions properly, which can be extremely dull. Story 81. Department manager for a large supermarket. I started a couple of weeks ago, and it is so much more than I expected when I was a regular team member. I now see why the salary is so high. This job is stressful. Story 82. Any job that involves waiting for long periods between tasks while remaining attentive can be challenging. If you can use your phone, watch television, exercise, or engage in similar activities as permitted in some jobs, then it is manageable. However, if you are in a position with prolonged, slow intervals between activities that feel like watching paint dry without any entertainment, it can become very tedious. Story 83. Librarians. People think we just sit around and read all day. In reality, we are professionals with master's degrees who are underpaid and must handle all members of the public. I have been called slurs and screamed at, as have many colleagues. Even smaller town libraries end up calling the police for one reason or another at least once a year. Story 84. I believe the difficulty of jobs is generally a subjective expression of qualities primarily involving intelligence, interest, and value structures. On a bad day, or for some people every day, every job feels hard. On a good day, or for some individuals, every job seems easy. On a good day, every job I have ever had was easy. On a bad day, even the easiest jobs felt terrible. That's just the reality. I think many people work in jobs where they do not meet the criteria of capability, interest, or associated values, which leads to their work being challenging. Many people mention customer service, but there are always those who excel in customer service and do not create problems. As a result, they often help diffuse any irritation from customers. I once worked in security, and most of the other guards faced constant issues with people. I only had one minor incident. One difficult individual does not equate to a hard job. The difference in delivery, temperament, and reaction matters. Except for one instance where I needed to help resolve a situation, by the end of it, we were on the same side and getting the job done together. When most other guards handled similar situations, they often approached it with a "you must follow the rules, or I will take it personally and be upset with you" attitude. Like, come on, be calm. Those individuals, a small majority, found their jobs taxing and difficult. It wasn't that the jobs were inherently hard. They simply lacked the capacity to manage them. I have worked in food service, and even the most challenging customers are fairly easy to deal with. However, that changes if you mishandle the situation and become defensive about it. Story 85. Exclusively engaging in social media marketing. At my age, my nerves couldn't handle my entire livelihood being dependent on the number of likes, shares, or impressions my content receives. Those I know who succeed in this field are exceptional, and I truly value their expertise. Story 86. Any computer-related job, whether in software or hardware, is affected, especially when decision-makers lack computer expertise, which is often the case. Story 87. Modeling can feel dehumanizing, as if you are just a commodity at casting calls, where you are often poked and prodded during fittings. There's a constant undercurrent of knowing that you are replaceable. Unless you achieve significant success, the compensation is poor. You may find yourself living in a cramped apartment with many other aspiring models. It's essential to keep your weight down, skin clear, hair healthy, and maintain a positive attitude. Story 88. Working as a server or waitstaff can be challenging. Many people struggle with key aspects of the job: standing for long periods, dealing with demanding customers, and multitasking effectively, such as keeping track of orders and tasks. While it's not the hardest job, certain skills are difficult to train. Story 89. Carpenter. Too often, I hear people say, "I do it myself. I just don't have the time." Many individuals need to be humbled when it comes to being handy, let alone being a skilled craftsman who can create functional art from wood and wood products. Do-it-yourself shows, magazines, and social media have inflated many egos, and it becomes painfully obvious when an amateur attempts a project that appears poorly executed, compared to someone who has honed their skills over many years making a living. Story 90. Food service. Many people confuse a job with a low barrier to entry with one that requires no skill to perform well, but food service is a role that would challenge many of those who look down on it. Story 91. People see teaching as easy because you get summers and breaks off. Let me tell you, that job is not easy. Story 92. Radiology technicians, including those who operate X-ray, magnetic resonance imaging, and computed tomography equipment, often face the misconception that they are merely pressing buttons. However, there is a significant amount of physics and physical labor involved in their work. Story 93. Nursing involves numerous situations that can negatively impact your mental, emotional, and physical health. Story 94. People who say teaching is just babysitting are mistaken. I would like to see them last even an hour leading a classroom productively. Story 95. Pharmaceutical sales is not a typical 9-to-5 job. Getting rejected multiple times a day while interacting with impatient patients can be demoralizing. It's important to appreciate the sales representatives who work hard to keep healthcare providers informed about medications, as some doctors may not be as familiar with their products without these representatives' efforts. Story 96. Garbage collector. It's not just picking up trash. You have to operate heavy machinery, ensure safety, remember routes, and at times work different routes efficiently. Additionally, there's the challenge of interacting with the public. Story 97. Writing often appears as though one is simply gazing out the window while actually engaged in work. Lawrence Kasdan once said, "Being a writer is like having homework every night for the rest of your life." He was correct. Story 98. I coordinate snow removal at an airport. It's not just plowing snow. I have to be 5 steps ahead of everything. I dispatch my operators to plow the runway so they can finish and have time to exit. Then I perform a friction test. While that's happening, I coordinate plowing the taxiways, ramps, and gates. We also plow the access road to the airport and the parking lots. The walkways must be cleared and treated with chemicals. Runway friction is critical. If I plow and sweep the runway, I can then apply chemicals. If that isn't sufficient, I try different chemicals. Timing is important. Everything must come together just before the aircraft arrives. If there's a delay or if the aircraft has to take a longer route due to an instrument landing system approach, we have to plan for it. And woe betide me if something happens and I didn't utilize every option available. Judge. So tell me why you didn't remove the windrow that the aircraft slid into. Me. I was stuck in my pickup, exhausted, and just trying to have a sandwich? Story 99. I work in retail and occasionally hear the tired old question, are you just doing this until you get a real job? If retail isn't a real job, then I don't want one. Story 100. Foreman. We can delegate the hard labor to the workers. In return, we can train while meeting the same deadline as if we had an experienced crew. This avoids challenges with non-English speaking workers, reducing the time spent using translation tools to convey instructions. We also have to coordinate between teams and subcontractors while managing customer expectations and adjustments to work orders. We have to deal with the timing of deliveries from supply yards and make temporary fixes to equipment just to get through the day, let alone complete the entire job. Additionally, we have the meticulous supervisor who shows up for a brief period to raise concerns about issues that are not fully resolved and will be addressed, just not immediately. Moreover, the paperwork is cumbersome. Story 101. Truck driving. People believe it will be automated in the near future. Spoiler alert. It won't ever be. Many think you simply sit down and drive all day, but it is mentally exhausting. Most individuals on the road can often be reckless, underestimating how much space a truck needs to stop completely. It is also physically demanding, as there is much more involved in the job than people realize, and it can significantly impact your life expectancy. Story 102. Being an environmental, health, and safety (EHS) professional is not just about telling people to put on their gloves or personal protective equipment (PPE). It involves guiding managers to effectively support their teams. Additionally, I must plan in a way that protects the most vulnerable individuals while being knowledgeable about safety, occupational health, and environmental issues. Furthermore, it is crucial to persuade upper management to invest in creating a proactive safety culture rather than merely meeting compliance standards, which are often not fully achieved. Without this understanding, securing resources for essential programs becomes a challenge, as they tend to be limited to the minimum requirements. Fortunately, I was recruited by a company with an executive team, EHS director, and plant management that truly understand these issues. Despite working in a plant that is inherently demanding, they support me and prioritize the well-being of the associates. The workplace culture has significantly improved over the past 11 months since I joined. Although I have been working 60 to 70 hours weekly during this time, they have provided me with support, resources, and opportunities for professional development, along with recognition for my efforts. It is rewarding that associates approach me with their concerns rather than viewing me as merely a safety officer. I hope to have most tasks up to date by the end of summer so I can take a breather. I genuinely enjoy my work, which makes it worthwhile. I casually asked the plant manager earlier this week if he would consider allowing a half-day stand-down in June to celebrate 7 years without a lost-time incident. I suggested activities such as hands-on fire extinguisher demonstrations. Instead of a vague response, he said, "We're meeting next week to discuss and start planning," which truly brightened my week. He also granted me a significant raise before my 1-year anniversary on Monday. I believe they invested over $30,000 in training and certifications to enhance my areas of expertise this year. Now, I am focusing on evaluating hazardous noise areas and identifying ways to mitigate or eliminate the sources of noise, ensuring that employees do not all require hearing conservation programs, are more comfortable, and can communicate effectively. Additionally, I aim to find better personal protective equipment that lasts longer, saves the company money overall, and is more comfortable for employees in situations where hazards cannot be eliminated. Story 103. Automotive technicians work with more than just nuts and bolts or simply plugging into a computer to diagnose issues. Their expertise goes much deeper than that. Story 104. working on the back end for a provider group in a specialty. Revenue cycle management involves working from the time claims are filed to payments, or more likely, denials. Yes, I get to work from home, but it requires a lot of mental energy every day. You need to be skilled at basic calculations, which can depend on the specialty. You must have good typing skills and know how to effectively craft an entire appeal or dispute letter, providing the right amount of information. Neither too much nor too little. You have to be able to make calls and handle some really irritating and sometimes outright rude insurance company representatives who read from scripts. It is essential to explain why you are right and why the insurance company denied the claim in error or why a procedure is medically necessary. Proper research and a deep dive into issues are sometimes required to resolve them. You may need to find and verify if the insurance company paid the correct amount by locating a fee schedule or your contract. It can be challenging even to find missing payments. Knowing the intricacies of everything on your claim is crucial. Otherwise, you will likely have to restart your dispute or determine the proper place to send it, because insurance companies can be sneaky and difficult to deal with. All of this occurs while meeting production and quality standards. Yes, I get to sit in air conditioning all day, but it's not enjoyable to sit and stare at a computer screen for hours. I have carpal tunnel in both wrists, the blue light from screens gives me migraines, and my ankles swell because there are days I have no time to get up and stretch. I only have time for a brief break and then I may be on hold for hours. I know there are many jobs that are much harder, and don't get me wrong, I love what I do and I'm very good at it. However, there are definitely many moving parts to being a revenue cycle specialist. Story 105, truck driver. I have heard many people describe it as a dream job. There is no boss, you spend all day sitting in an air-conditioned cab, with a bed and refrigerator, passing through scenic locations, and all you have to do is drive. I know how to drive. I won't point out how inaccurate that perception is. You can come to that conclusion on your own. Story 106. Video game tester. My husband worked as one for years, and it sounds like a desirable dream job of getting paid to play video games. In reality, it's about meticulously replicating and reporting bugs, and you have a quota for finding and filing a certain number of bugs per shift. Story 107. Coding has experienced a small golden age from 2012 to 2019. There were more jobs than people, and even a less skilled programmer could have a successful career. However, too many people have entered the industry, making it increasingly frustrating. Story 108. People often criticize fast food work, but even when I did it decades ago, it was complex with many moving parts. It required learning different positions and tasks, could be physically demanding and even hazardous, and was often plagued by difficult customers and management. Those workers earn their money and more. Story 109. As a machinist, I have encountered many times the misconception that all we do is push buttons or turn knobs. Put a print in front of them and a piece of steel and tell them to make this, and they realize quickly that they were mistaken. Story 110. I used to be a breakfast attendant at a hotel. I was running around so fast to ensure everyone was fed and happy that I barely had time to breathe. Nobody even gave me a tip for it. If you stay at a hotel and enjoy their complimentary breakfast, please leave a tip for the person working hard to ensure you have a good start to your day. It's the right thing to do. Always treat the people handling your food kindly, as that food is going directly into your mouth. Many things could go wrong if they are not motivated to care about you. It's a good thing I have morals and ethics. Story 111. Photo and videography. Sometimes it's the best job ever. Other times it's just cold, wet, and exhausting. Story 112. This answer may be obvious because of my name, but I'm going to say truck driving. On paper, you're paid to travel the country. In reality, you're paid to travel the country on the highways. There is no time for stopping or sightseeing. You're away from your family, and it doesn't pay well enough. You have no life, and it's hard to stay healthy. Sometimes you get very little rest. You're limited to 11 hours of driving a day, but you often work more than that depending on the situation. It's a difficult situation. I told myself I'd try it for a year, and that was 13 years ago. You get stuck in it. I don't know what it is, but you can't escape it once you get in. Story 113. I did a lot of public relations and communications work. Negotiations and face-to-face outreach were part of the job. Many people who dismiss this as just talking are also the reason I had so much to do and why it was much harder than it needed to be. If your approach is to emulate fictional characters like Don Draper or Gordon Gekko, it might work in real life, but only if other people don't have the same idea or haven't been influenced by the same media. People rarely conform to stereotypes. I'm not an impressive shark type of person by any means, and it has been obnoxiously pointed out. However, my approach of wanting to return home as soon as possible works far better than the cartoonish need to keep everyone in the room for validation. Compromises are contextual and not always about losing. Honestly, I just want to go home. Story 114. Financial planning involves many moving parts, and no two cases are the same. Additionally, you are working with people's finances, so the stakes are high. Story 115. Social media often leads people to believe that the only task is posting on TikTok or similar platforms all day. The range of analytical, creative, sales, and other skills I have had to apply to this job is remarkable. I hold a Bachelor of Science in Forensic Psychology and attended graduate school for neuroscience, specializing in pediatric mood disorders. This background provided excellent training for the responsibilities I manage. Story 116. Any type of retail requires dealing with people who think the job is easy. These individuals often display arrogance and can be quite annoying. Story 117. 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. night shift stacking supermarket shelves. Your body wants to fight back, and your partner needs to be incredibly patient. People say, "Oh, you have the day off then." No, I'm trying to get to sleep, and my days are completely disrupted. Everything is about finding a balance in life, but night shifts challenge you in different ways. Story 118. Anything related to sex work. When people think of sex work, they often picture their own sexual experiences and assume it is easy and fun. However, sex workers now earn significant sums of money. But that is not the reality. Aside from the often unglamorous act itself, there is considerable background work that goes into it, including marketing, scripting, regular medical checkups, and sexually transmitted infection testing, editing, videography, networking, contract writing, and tax management. I would compare it to operating a marketing agency, videography, editing, production, public relations management, human resources, accounting, and acting all in one. On top of that, there is the need to maintain physical and aesthetic upkeep and to manage the mental health challenges that can arise. Every successful sex worker I have met holds one or more university degrees. Many people enter the industry thinking it is easy, but only those who are truly intelligent and possess business experience tend to find long-term success. Story 119. Sonographer/ultrasound technician. I was in school for this, and the number of people who openly questioned whether this was a legitimate career, if they learned from YouTube or asked, "Is it a girl or a boy?" referring to a kidney was surprising. The truly skilled technicians make it look easy. Story 120. Most people assume that working in a preschool is easy because young children do not need education. However, there is a significant amount of responsibility and pressure involved for anyone who works at a preschool. Story 121. Backup athlete. It's not just holding a clipboard. You have to work hard every day at practice and be ready to step in at a moment's notice. Those opportunities to earn consistent playing time are rare, and the play calls don't always allow you to showcase your skills. Story 122. Renting cars is often misunderstood. People assume I simply sit at a desk and hand car keys to customers. If they only knew the stress involved in that industry. Story 123. Pool cleaner. I thought it would be leisurely to scoop a few leaves out of pools and enjoy the outdoors, but it was nothing like that. You would be surprised how dirty some people's pools get in just a week. I had to work 10 to 11-hour days just to complete all my pools, and if I didn't finish by the end of the week, I had to come in on Saturday to do it. This job had me working even when it was hailing and the wind was gusting wildly. My body was physically worn out from that position. I couldn't have been happier when I finally decided to quit. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.